Islam, Ashay, I am Terry Phillips Dangerfield L. This is That More Stuff Podcast Network. Today's podcast is going to be, the title of today's podcast is going to be Let There Be Love. All right. And this podcast today is motivated by some of the previous podcasts, mentioning the fact that love is it's an opportunity here in North America and the world over. Of course, with all the entertainment and the commercial venues we have going, of course, the socialism and all of the hate in the world that's been, that I call that's been perfected. All right. So before we go into this podcast, let's get through some of the particulars. And first off, again, this is That More Stuff Podcast. I am your host, Terry Phillips Dangerfield Hill. The title of this podcast is Let There Be Love. All right, let there be love. Before starting, I'd like to give honors to High Mama, the Most Honorable Noble Drew Ali, Marcus Garvey, peace to the ancestors. The Mother Matriarch, frame honors the Mother Radius Gospel Turner L. Bay, Mother Dr. Francis Crutchwell Sr., and good Mother Fannie Lou Hamer. All right. Peace and love to all matriarchs known and unknown, all patriarchs known and unknown. Honors to the ancestors. Peace to the Moors of North America. Peace to all the human family, Earth citizens, and cosmic beings on planet Earth and in the universe. All right. So to get started, we're going to go in on a definition of love. All right. Now, love, when it comes to this love thing, the love protocol, there's so many levels to it. We hear about, the tough love, the unconditional love. I don't know if there's anything called basic love. It's just called love. But there's a lot of different, just saying that to say, there's a lot of different definitions for love or the love energy. And so, where I'm channeling this particular podcast is just the basics of love and how to navigate within the basic portions of love, which is there's levels to it. And from my humble opinion and experience, the most highest level of love is the unconditional love, what they call a mother's love, all right? The unconditional love capacity, all right? So, starting off, here I got a definition here. And now this definition, it's a description of love and slightly a definition. And it's talking about it's the true love definition of true love, or not versus a conditional type of love where, all right, you do this for me, I love you, or I love you because you do this type of deal. If you stop doing that, then maybe the love dwindles or something. So, all right, the definition of this, the true love definition, is a deep and selfless affection encompassing care, respect, and a genuine desire for the other person's well-being, often involving commitment and loyalty. All right. So this definition of love talks about a selfless energy of projection toward another that's usually, involving loyalty and commitment. And this is something that is more so when you talk about one-on-one intimate relationships between a man and a woman, or others that are significant other. Whereas you're in a relationship and you're projecting those positive energies of love toward each other within an institution, usually involving matrimony, dating, things like that. All right, but today, this particular podcast, I'm going to apply this love energy to, specifically, is universal, but specifically the Moors of North America, who identify as Black peoples. and of course the Moors world over, because there's one human race, and on this planet, there's a lot of opportunity for love. Of course, there are good things going on in the world today, and there's always been good things going on. However, it appears that things have been overshadowed by hate. So let's go into this love energy. All right. So the first topic at hand, and it's a question in the form of a question: is love masculine or feminine energy? All right. Is love a masculine or a feminine energy? So with this question, the love energy is more of a balanced. Let me explain it properly. It's more of a balanced energy, meaning that it's both feminine and masculine, because there are levels to it, right? But from a simple fashion, when there's love energy present, right, more of a love where there's not skewed expectations, and this transcends any type of relationship. Where there's just I only love you because of expectations. There's more balance, there's more harmony, and there's more of a true love essence. All right. So being that love is balanced, meaning that it's both masculine and feminine, and it's more of a creative energy coming from a feminine source. You know what I mean? It's a balance. It's coming from creation. It's a creative energy, so it comes from a feminine source. All right. And this is where you can get. This is where going to the next point. This is where you get the motherhood or the non-conditional love energy. And a good example of love is the non-conditional love energy. You know what I mean? From motherhood. Now when it comes to fathers, a lot of times I know for myself being a father, I used to give out more of a tough love, more of an exercising type of love that involved lessons, you see. And one story or one example of this is in the past when I was raising my children, and they would get into their little quarrels, their little fights or arguments and whatnot. And so one of the things that I would do is if they were arguing, is I would have one of my shirts. During that time, I was a larger gentleman, or a larger man, and so I would get one of my shirts, and what I would do, me and the spouse, my wife at the time, would write some little cheesy writing, "I love you so much" on the shirt. One of my T-shirts that I didn't want, a white T-shirt, and we would make whoever the two children were that were arguing or fighting about something silly, we would make both of them get in that one shirt and hug each other in that one shirt, and they had to say, "I love you." And so that's an example of tough love. And the end result of that is, all right, well, we've learned a lesson in this, and we won't argue over little silly things anymore. And of course, that was effective. It actually worked. And my children had few arguments over little substance, little bitty things that didn't mean anything, versus actual issue that can be taken care of and solved. All right. So that's an example of tough love that I would exercise, and that's just another example of the love energy and the levels of love. All right. All right. So move right along. I wanted to just give those introductions on love, and let's go into the highest energy of love, and then we'll go into the other topics at hand. All right. So, I mentioned motherhood here a couple minutes back. All right. The non-conditional love energy of a mother, and all of us that are here in a body on this planet, we've had a mother who came out of a womb, and a lot of us hadn't. Some of us hadn't felt that unconditional mother's energy, unconditional love from a mother, and so most of us have. And it's the unconditional love is more of, all right, it don't matter what mistake you made. There's some mothers out there, they child, I'm talking about them picked up the earth and laid it back down and did all kind of things, in their lives, and the mother still loves them no matter what. She never takes her love away from her child, male or female. And this is an example of an unconditional love, of a mother, regardless of what you do. It doesn't mean that you don't get justice, you know what I'm saying? I know with my own experience with my mother, she was very good with the unconditional love energy. As a child, I didn't mess up a lot, but throughout my little mess up, she loved me anyway. Same with all of my siblings, And so it's a good example for the non-conditional love energy is motherhood. And this is the love energy that is the highest frequency. When it comes to you talking when you're talking energy, it is the highest frequency. And it seems that this energy surpasses any lower frequency in this plane of existence, so it seems, And it's also a love energy that's not often seen here in North America. Not often. I mean, you see it with the mothers, you know what I'm saying? You see it with the mothers, with their children. Outside of that, it's few and far between, if any, and also you'll see demonstrations of unconditional love on movies and, stories on the news. You may see some things like that, but however, I mean, it's few and far between. But a beautiful energy and a beautiful opportunity to take advantage of is the unconditional love energy. And I'll get more into that later on in the podcast, all right? So let's talk about love for self. All right, love for self. And I spoke about this on a previous podcast on doing shadow work. All right, doing shadow work. Excuse me. And so this is where you begin to look at yourself, do a what is called you can call it a self inventory on how you treated yourself. How you look at of course you look at how you treat others, but you look at how you treated yourself and how you allow others to treat you. And you gauge this and you decide if you're truly showing love for yourself. What do you do for yourself? Are you making life harder for yourself, more challenging, based off of the makeup of your lifestyle? What is your lifestyle like? Are you showing love within your being? Are you projecting love off, or do you project hate off more so than you project love? You see, you do those type of self inventories, and this is the beginning of love for yourself. And usually when you have love for yourself, you will limit the amount of abuse that comes to your being, that comes to your body. You see, you will limit the amount of abuse, and you will limit people getting over on you. You see what I'm saying? And if you made mistakes in this life, if you love yourself enough, if you've done your shadow work, you don't carry that mistake on your shoulder the rest of your life, no matter what. You see what I'm saying? Because you look at it as, what is this doing for me? What is this? Me carrying this mistake and the past issues of my life, the past things that I didn't do so well in. Why would I carry that on my shoulder the rest of my life? What does it do for me? Does it make me happy? Does it make me money? Does it make others happy? When I talk about it, you gauge things like that. And this is some levels of shadow work that you do within yourself for self-love. And one example I wanted to talk about is one good example is the felony system. All right, the felony system here in North America. We have a criminal justice system is what it's called, and the criminal justice system it's always been around. All right, it started with the Moors on planet Earth, of North America, and on planet Earth. These ancient systems of criminal law that are sophisticated, all right? And so these systems evolved with the takeover of the European conglomerate after 1776, and then after the Constitution was established, then you had the Judiciary Act that established the courts around 1790. And so with the establishments of these courts, these circuit courts, federal courts, the Supreme Court especially, then that was the beginning of the modern criminal justice system that involved the criminal law, Magna Charta, implementation of Christian Black Code type of codified laws. At any rate, this is what if you have made some mistakes and committed a crime, this is what you're dealing with today. Meaning longer prison sentences if you are a particular phenotype and you identify as a color, ideally black, you get the longer sentences, etc., etc. All right, so let's home in on just any felons, but particularly the Moors that identify as black people. All right, most of us are in the prison systems and locked up, life sentences. We get out on parole, and then a lot of us can't, or have challenges finding jobs, and we're looking for the 9-to-5 system. So, at any rate, saying all that, when you get into the justice system and you go into the regular world and you go to look for a job, and the companies don't show you any, they usually won't show you any love on a general sense. That does something to your psyche. You see what I'm saying? As a man or a woman, it does something to your psyche. It makes you feel less. Now I'm just speaking from what I've seen in a workplace, and just talking to people that have these sentences and have these criminal records. Especially if you quote unquote the minority. It makes you feel inferior. It brings about an inferiority complex, which is harder for you to love yourself, to feel like you're worth something, or you belong, or you know what I'm saying, or you're just as good as anybody else. Criminal or no criminal or whatever. And criminal means that it's ongoing. When you say you're a criminal, when someone says you're a criminal or describes a criminal, that means, all right, they live for crime. That's it. But if you committed a crime, you're not if you committed a crime, you stopped, you don't intend on committing any other crimes, you're not a criminal. You just made a mistake. So personally, I'm talking about the people that have committed a crime. I ain't talking to no criminals. You know what I'm saying? I'm not building up the self-esteem of criminals. If you want to be a criminal, that's on you. That's your own shadow work. All right. So, but you do have a second chance at any rate, whoever you are, anybody, if you committed a crime. So, anyway, a lot of the, what you call felons, they have this low self-esteem where they go on the job, man, you ain't showing no love. You just be like, F it, forget it. I just go back to the streets. I just go back to the men because you can't get it. Challenging to get a job. You see what I'm saying? And so this will affect the love essence, the confidence within one of themselves. You know what I'm saying? And and it's harder to do shadow work when people are rejecting you. It's very difficult. But this is the answer. Shadow work and love for self, and deciding that, hey, look, where there's a will, there's a way. You know what I mean? I don't have to work for these companies. There are companies out there, that will hire quote unquote people that made a mistake in their life, that might have gotten up to a felony, misdemeanor. There are companies out there. And then there's options for ones to open their own companies. You can get your own LLCs. Where there's a will, there's a way. And so if you love yourself enough, you'll look out for yourself. You won't worry about what others think about you and what other companies, within their establishment name people, outside of their establishment that might have made a mistake. They call you criminals, felons, and things like that. And so, saying all that, you want to properly do your shadow work, regardless of what mistake you made. Make sure you don't make that mistake again. Make sure you're intentional, right? And begin to forgive yourself. You know what I'm saying? And that's a process as well. And begin to love yourself, and move forward from that, and look and strive to find other ways. Where there's a will, there's a way. Especially here in North America. You see what I'm saying? This is a multi-quadrillion dollar estate here in North America. And if you got a will, you can relocate. You'll find work. You may not want to relocate out of your hometown. Sometimes you got to move away for a few years and then come back. You have to work around obstacles and things like that. And this is a way of, showing love for yourself. First off, this is more of a love for yourself in motion. You see what I'm saying? You're doing what it takes. You're not making excuses for anything, any reason not to look out for yourself and deal with yourself, especially psychologically. You're not letting, you're eliminating outside factors or obstacles from you getting to your goals. All right. So, all right, and also a quick fact here, quick little fact. Felony, it's old French felon, Felonie, and it implies wicked person. All right, this is what felony means etymologically, wicked wicked person, and so or act of wickedness. This is what felony means. You committed a felony or you committed an act of wickedness. So this is where the word comes from. Felony is what that means, just in case anyone didn't know that. I just learned that about a week ago, a few days ago. So I didn't know that either. But when you've committed a felony, that don't necessarily mean you're a wicked person. But this is how the system looks at you. This is the reason why they apply it to your record. To a your regular commercial record. You know what I'm saying? Under the commercial and under your name. Felony. That means you got a felony on your record, meaning that you're a wicked person. This is how they're looking at it. You know what I'm saying? So that will certainly challenge your self-esteem and the love you have for yourself. So you got to battling that. You have to go within, do your shadow work, and make a decision that you're going to forgive yourself and live by that, regardless of what anybody on the outside said, regardless of what you've done. Make sure you got to make sure you paid your due justice for what you did and move forward, and not carry on those boulders, those weights on your shoulder, and show love for yourself first. Then you can project love for others, based off of your love for yourself. It starts with self. That's what I'm saying. All right. So another little topic I want to talk about, which moves on from what is in unison with the topic I just spoke on. Just moving along outside of any external barriers, economically, with the felony system and people that committed crimes, and it's hard economically for you to get that great job you wanted. You might have went to college, got a degree, but you got that record. You know what I'm saying? And you got to look at it here in North America. It's a question: how many millionaires did the USA 9-to-5 system create? And so this is a kind of like a tricky question, because it depends on your lifestyle. Usually it depends on your lifestyle, how much you spend. Let's see, what sector you're working in, technology, law enforcement, politics. It just all depends. You know what I mean? It's a whole bunch of millionaires. A lot of common people are millionaires, but this question is really for the 9-to-5 people on the grind. All right, the middle to lower class, that's making anywhere from $15 to $30 an hour, for 65 years working for a company. Those particular type of routes. Plumbing, you're working for the light company, the factories. Did they make you millionaires? Do they make you millionaires? What I studied and saw that is typically, you'll leave with or if it's a good company, you may leave with a decent retirement account. You know what I'm saying? A couple $100,000 if that. You know what I'm saying? And that's taxed as well. So you have to look at all that. But usually not. All right. If you're not in one of those higher sector jobs, politics, technology, and of course your lifestyle, you got to gauge that as well. The constitution of your lifestyle, how much you spend, college, children, the wife, the husband. You know what I'm saying? You have to constitute all that as well. And so this is where I always encourage people to just look to form their own businesses outside of what they're doing. Some kind of family business outside of what you're doing that could potentially, you got your own business, you can potentially strike it rich. You have a higher potential to strike it rich versus the lower section 9 to 5 jobs. You know what I mean? Depending on what you do, depending on what you're doing, whatever sector you're dealing with. All right. So that's just the opportunity. It's a little bitty nugget there I wanted to enter in on the record for any and everybody, really, especially people that are economically challenged. And even if you have, criminal background, you have options, especially here in North America. All right. So moving right along, I'm going to go into another essence of this discussion. Let there be love. All right. And this particular topic is going to be in regards to the Moors of North America that identifies Black people, African Americans, all different types of colors, etc., etc. We're going to talk about some of the things that have went on just a little bit. All right, within the last few hundred years, just a little bitty things to get to where there's opportunities for us to love, and it's not very hard for us to do it if we want to. All right, so. First off, we got Africa claiming both Africas as the original people. All right, both Africas as the original people are the original people on the planet. All right, so we are the original people of the planet, the Moors, who identify as Black people. And of course, we talked about it on the last podcast. Mother America, the True Egypt, that was the last podcast, about the original people, claiming Africa over there in the East, and peace to the Al-Keebaland brothers and sisters over in the East, and versus claiming your greatest state over here in North America. All right, and so when dealing with this subject, man, it's usually polar opposite. All right, it's pretty much polar opposites, man. It's either the Aboriginal Moors over here, Aboriginal Moors, the tribal clans claiming North America and rejecting Africa, or it's the Moors of North America who identify as Black peoples claiming Africa strong. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about throwing up that fist. You know what I'm saying? The brown fist, or they call it the black fist, and claiming Africa strong, And then in retrospect, the Africans, they looking at us like we ain't really claiming y'all, but hey, thank y'all for looking at us as y'all only forefathers, in existence, type of deal. Respectfully, this is just how it is. And so it's like it's a battle of opposites. When it, and so, and we're the only people on the planet dealing with this phenomenon. You look at some of the other phenotypes, the other cultures, they're not dealing with things like that, and look, they've been displaced too. Most all quote unquote races have been through slavery. All right. All of them, pretty much, have been through some sort of slavery, some sort of pillaging, which is actually prisoners of war is all it is. It's really all it is. You know what I'm saying? Prisoners of war for commercial value, financial value. And so, and yet they're claiming in this day and time, they're claiming a nationality. They're claiming some of their true modern lineages. Where with us, we have all this opportunity to claim, all of it, pretty much, essentially, starting here in North America. And so I tell those people, they're on the polar opposites. You know what I'm saying? All right, you want to claim Africa over there in the East, or the so-called East, then make sure you claim a nation over there then. A nation state, one of the nation states that the Berlin conferences split up. They split up all those nations for business. Cameroon, South Africa, Ethiopia, things like that. And the Egyptian spot, the Egyptian territory over there that was perpetuated or founded in 1953, June 18th. I think I said June 8th on one other podcast. It's actually June 18th. All right. You got all of these different nation states. You could, so if you're gonna claim Africa over there, please make sure you claim a nation state. You see what I'm saying? Do your due diligence, because the continent wasn't called Africa during that quote unquote slave trade. Now do your research on this. No, don't quote me on this. But it wasn't Africa during those few 500 years ago. All right. It was our Kivu land. And per some of the people over there in the East, those tribes didn't identify by their name, all right? And don't identify that by their name. So, all right, you claim a nation state over there, and then also make sure you claim over here too. All right, claim your heritage over here, because the heritage over here is absolute. All right, the United States government, none of the governments have yet to prove this to be incorrect about the Moors of North America that identify as black people. The fact that we were in here in mass first, ahead of anybody else. We're the people of the planet. So, if you want to claim Africa over there, go right ahead. But love your ancestors enough, and love where you came from enough to claim over here too. All right, because when you look at it, people that lived here before we did paved the way for us to be where we are today. All right. So moving right along, I just wanted to get that topic out. We want to make sure that we claim this multi-quadrillion-dollar estate that's just sitting here waiting on us to claim. If you don't want to deal with your Moorish heritage and your Aboriginal heritage, that's your business. The only thing I would humbly ask is that the people that move in this fashion, let's not play victim anymore. All right, let's stop being victims, and that goes for all of us, really. But especially the ones I don't want to claim that. I don't want to deal with that. Let's not be victims to the pale skinned Europeans anymore. All right, let's stop saying, oh, they did this to us, they doing this to us, but you ain't dealing with none of your ancestry or none of your estate. And the information is out there now. People know about this. You look, all right, you just say, hey, if the government ain't giving it to me, I don't care. All right, so when you ignore things like that, that's a lack of love for yourself. You see what I'm saying? You ignore, you don't want to deal with it. You should channel hate toward your Aboriginal cultures, anywhere, especially here. Then, hey, that's a lack of love. All right, so we want to move more. We want to move in a love capacity, starting with who we are, where we came from. This is where love is at its strongest energy. When you show honor for your ancestors, you accept where you come from. You accept what your lineage is, good, bad, and ugly. All right. So moving further along on our lineages, here's another piece of information about our Aboriginal ancestors. And so I just wanted to put this out here. The Moorish Nation in North America are made up of Cherokee, Iroquois, and Choctaw tribes called a confederation. All right. This is what a confederation is. Essentially, a number of tribes that form an alliance, and they become one unit, and it is called a confederation or a confederacy. This is where the concept comes from. This is essentially describing what I would call what is called a united of Asia. All right, and this is how the Moorish Empire became an empire. All right, you had tribes, different tribes, different alliances coming together, making up one empire, here in the North Gate or North America. You know what I'm saying? And so all of everything starts with us. Good, the bad, and the ugly. All the religions, you see what I'm saying? All of the creeds, the cultures, etc. The military applications, it all starts with us here in North America. That's the real truth. And so within all of that I just expounded on, just that I just mentioned, there was good, bad, and ugly. You see what I'm saying? Good, bad, and ugly. And so we have to accept. We want to accept all of that. That way, you're not living in a fairy tale of victimhood and blaming and projecting everybody else for the reason that the reason that you are who you are, the way you are, etc., etc. Of course, there are bad things and not so good things and chaos in the particular society that we live in, but there are reasons for it. You see what I'm saying? A lot of us that identify as black people, we deal with the victim portions of it, but we don't deal with the reason behind why we're getting what we're getting. You see? And the ugly part of it is that we participated. All right, this is the ugly portion of the past of North America, especially in the world over. The Moors, who identify as black people, and other races and landmarks and things, participated in a lot of the atrocities that went on here in North America. We participated. So what do we do about this, Terry L? Since we talked about it, we participated. We had slaves too. We killed we unalived a lot of Albions too. We unalived our own too. All right. So what do we do about this? We have to start to forgive ourselves. All right. We have to start to forgive ourselves for the bad things that we've done in the past and the bad things that we've done up to date. And move away from that, and move away from doing the same thing over and over again. All right, and this is how you become a loving, caring being for yourself first. You see what I'm saying? You start to love yourself first by that one decision in your mind that says, "Hey, I'm not dealing with that anymore. I'm not gonna hate on myself or my ancestors for what they did. However, I will choose to accept what they did and make sure I don't do what they did and do better than what they did. That way they will feel, if they were here, they will feel good about that." You see what I'm saying? Because usually when we, as beings of love and light, we usually, there's a conscience when you do things like that. You usually have a conscience when you do it love enough. You see what I'm saying? The conscience starts talking to you. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's your spirit. That's the shadow. That's, your spirit inside the shadow, your soul talking to you about wanting you to correct things. You see? So this is just a one example in one area in North America where there's huge opportunities, all right, for us to accept things for what they are and move forward. Because when you look at it, the past, this is the age of Aquarius, of course. We've all figured it out, or we're figuring it out, based off of a lot of the changes and a lot of things that are going on. So, all right, the age of Pisces, in this last age, look, we perfected hate. All right, there's no need to talk about all of the real messed up, chaotic things that have went on and are going on. The way we target each other, where everybody targets each other. You know what I'm saying? Consciously, subconsciously, socially. All right. However, we've mastered hate. So with the new age, it's certainly, I would encourage everyone to turn over a new leaf. It's certainly time to turn over a new leaf. You know what I mean? That way, you won't get those spiritual spankings from the ethers. You know what I'm saying? Because the ethers, the energies are handing out spankings to people. quick and quick. There's no pause. You know, people getting spankings in a lot of different ways. So, at any rate, we want to correct ourselves because we love ourselves first and foremost. And you know, of course, there's consequences for any type of energy, cause and effect that you put out. You put out negative energy, you're gonna get it back. This is universal law. You know, and so this is why I mentioned thinking positive thoughts most of the day, as much as you can, every day, as much as you can. And certainly it is a challenge. You know what I mean? It's a challenge. And so when you do things, there's a saying, when you do things, one thing for at least 30 days, it becomes a habit. So this is what you want. Do you want this particular type of habit? You know what I mean? And things like that. So, of course, at any rate, speaking on, you know, the United of Asia unity, claiming Africa and North America as your heritage, as your lineage, from a world perspective, it's certainly correct. You know, and of course, nationality is the order of the day. You know, what's your nationality? My nationality is Moorish American. All right. I did my shallow work. I'm still doing my shallow work. I studied my ancient past and still studying my ancient past. And I have love for all of my ancestors. All right. Noble Ali, he said that the Moors of North America need to learn to love instead of hate. And one thing he did for us is he brought back our nation, our religions, and the title to our vast estate. Now, this is just from an estate, a heritage perspective. All right, you know what I mean? He brought all of this information back to us, and this is certainly an act of love that I wanted to mention here, that one of our ancestors brought back to us. You know, in the form of pretty much in the form of a trust. All right, he brought our heritage back to us. This is our lineage, this is our heritage, and it's full of wealth, nothing but wealth, you know what I mean? And of course we accept the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we align ourselves with this, our heritage, our lineage, and our wealth, all right? And so I wanted to speak on another topic here, dating and relationships, particularly within the Moorish nation. All right. So there's this thing called a gender wars in North America. All right, it's called a gender wars, and so we know who it usually is. Usually it's us with all the problems. When you look up, you study the divorce rate, and I'll mention this over and over again. The Moors of North America, who identify as black, have the highest divorce rate, the lowest marriage rate. All right. The men and the women, we are usually feuding with each other over small concepts, but that are big to us. All right. You know, how we feel about something is big, is huge to us, and we'll feud about that, usually with no resolution or no solution. All right. So, which with that type of navigation, this leads us to the gender wars, where you have platforms of hate, meaning that like you online, and you will see platforms of hate. Somebody's opened up a platform on YouTube, Facebook. You got X, which used to be Twitter. You got TikTok, and people are opening up platforms of hate and talking about men this and a man had to pay me $10 million for a date, and ninjas ain't, you know, a lot of different mean things. Some of the sisters like some of those type of sisters. And then you got the brothers on those same platforms, historically, talking about our women and how our women, just all the negative stuff. You know what I'm saying? Just all of the negative stuff. You know? And so this is called the gender wars, and of course the men will act like, all right, the women are just all crazy, and that's it, pretty much. And so it's just this thing is a circle of insanity. When after they get off their platform, what do? They go in there, they'll go be with one of those opposite beings of the opposite sex that they just got through blasting on their platform, and which is a circle of insanity and a circle of hate. All right, and this is one of the reasons why we have the highest divorce rates and the lowest marriage rates here in North America amongst the Moors, who identify as black. All right, so to counter this phenomenon, all right, one thing we have to start doing is going back. This is what has worked for me. Is going back to the mindset of our foremothers and forefathers, all right, i.e., the 12 signs of Zodicus or the zodiac. All right, 12 signs of the zodiac. And I mention this because normally when we have these types of disconnections amongst us, the melanated Moors of North America, it's usually because our zodiac sign, this is usually now, because whenever I've dealt with couples or friends, family, otherwise, that are having feuds, having disagreements, I just ask them randomly, when is her birthday? When is your solar return? When is her solar return? And they'll tell me, oh, I'm an Aries and she's a Scorpio, which are conflicted zodiac signs. Or she's a Sagittarius and I'm a Cancer. There's a wonder y'all hadn't told, excuse me, but y'all hadn't told each other lips out, because y'all conflicted on most everything. And in retrospect, where the 12 signs of the zodiac, it connects zodiac signs where you can harmonize better, as where you won't. Most of the time you will dodge any kind of conflicts, any kind of common conflict between most couples. You know what I'm saying? And this is going back to the mindset of our foremothers and forefathers, and also showing love for who we are. We're showing love for who we are, where we come from, for our ancient sciences, and the ancient science of cosmology, of the cosmos, the science of the cosmos, or the universe, cosmology. This is what 12 signs of the zodiac is. If you celebrate a quote-unquote birthday, born day, solar return, then you're dealing with the 12 signs of the zodiac. All right? And to deal with the 12 signs of the zodiac, you're tying yourself back to your ancient ancestry. All right? To your lineage. If you to the Moors that identify as black, or colors, or African Americans, etc., etc. All right? And this will connect us to the love energy. Essentially, when you don't have to feud and war with your spouse, this is connecting you back to love. We can get back to love, rather than trying to figure out why we don't get along. For whatever reason, political differences and things like that. You know what I'm saying? And usually, when you deal with somebody, we all know this from experience, that, somebody in our harmonizing zodiac sign, usually within the sun sign, more likely we're to get along with you. You know what I'm saying? And we can get into getting to know each other, respect, etc., etc. All right. So the next point is social connections, friendship, all the way to relationships. You know what I'm saying? And dealing with those properly, which goes back to the 12 signs of the zodiac, of course. I personally have had friends that were of a different harmonizing sign in comparison to mine. Meaning that I've had some fire. I'm a water sign, Scorpio sun sign. Meaning that I've had some fire signs and air signs as, buddies. male and female, that worked out properly simply because of the 12 signs of the zodiac. This is where I give, pay homage to the ancestors. You know what I'm saying? 12 signs of the zodiac, because I knew how to come at them. You know what I'm saying? There's a couple of them I knew since childhood, and we just harmonized on some level. All right, but most of them, it was because of the 12 signs of the zodiac. Understanding that, all right, this is a fire sign, this is a water sign, this is an air sign. And so I may not talk to my air sign people like I talk to my fire sign people, or my water sign people like my earth sign people, you see. And in some ways, I connect with everybody usually the same way, because I am who I am. I am that I am. However, certain conversations I will dwindle or elevate depending on the zodiac sign or the zodiac signature. All right. So again, just using that as an example, with social connections, friendship, relationships as well, you get into communicating, and you notice the connection, the harmonizing. You may notice what you call red flags. You know what I'm saying? We'll point out a red flag, and it just simply may be a disharmony within your zodiac signature or your zodiac sign. And that's something of course that's something to look at. You know what I mean? It's something to navigate with, and it's easier to navigate when you're dealing with people if you know usually if you know their zodiac signature, their date of birth, their birthday, not necessarily date of birth usually, but their birthday or solar return date or incarnation date. All right. So moving on to the next topic. I think we spoke on the Aboriginal cultures, our love for our Aboriginal cultures, and accepting things for what they are. And I wanted to talk about different ways to study our Moorish lineage and study ourselves. All right, this is a topic that I think needs to be talked about. And there's not, and I can start with myself within my personal studies of learning to love instead of hate, and studying myself. The past almost 13 years. Starting with my shadow work, and then going into my Moorish studies, the Moorish studies and the Aboriginal studies, tribal studies. I didn't do it just one way. You see what I'm saying? I used a few books that I got online, that I purchased online. I went to a couple of bookstores. A lot of my studies come from online. Pretty much, the YouTubes, hours and hours of YouTubing, Facebooking, studying online, and other independent websites as well. Also, I've done recordings, like recordings that were put out. Of course, connecting with different people, melanated people online, etc. And most important, meditating. That was probably the most important part, was the shadow work and the meditating in whatever way you choose to meditate. Some ways to meditate is to sit the universal, they call it Indian style, but it's the universal cosmic way of meditating, where you sit Indian style, legs crossed, with a little hand mudra. It's a cosmic type of meditation is what that is. That spans the cosmos, all right? Another topic, another day. However, this is, that's one way of meditation. Another way of meditation, exercise. Another way of meditation, you just sit still in the room, close your eyes, and just go to that high level beta state without completely dozing off and going to sleep. That's another way to meditate, all right? Other ways to meditate, you can go walk through the forest, all right? So meditating is universal in that capacity, all right? And that worked wonders for me in learning to love myself and accept myself for who I am and where I come from. And everything about me is correct, incorrect, that others may see incorrect, that others may see correct. I accepted all of that. And that, it's just part of the existence here on this planet. All right? In this line of consciousness. Everything, you ever heard that term? Everything is everything. That goes for us too. Everything is everything. It is what it is. And we accept the good and the bad. And this helped me love myself a lot more. Whereas I have learned to love myself despite what others may think of me, or what they thought of me, why they look at me, or let me just simply have a difference of opinion of what I do, how I do it. And, that's their business, not mine. The way I look at it is, well, hey, look, I honor the fact that you have an opinion. And if your opinion is not in harmony with my set of opinions or approaches, well, what are we doing? You know what I'm saying? I mean, we don't have to be around each other, we don't have to talk to each other, you know what I'm saying? But I don't have to hate you because I don't talk to you, don't mean I don't have to want things to go good for you if you deserve it. You're not out abusing, taking advantage of people. Hey, have the best life that you can have. Good tidings and you know what I'm saying? Type of deal. And that's showing love. I don't have to, if I don't talk to you, that don't mean I have to hate you. You know what I'm saying? If you're one of the ones that have done something to me, well, I can forgive you. I don't have to be around you. And I can still learn. That's me learning to love. I can work toward forgiving you. It may be a process. You see what I'm saying? Most things are a process. You see, when it comes to emotion, things like that, love, working through love, socializing with other people, usually it's a process. And some of those processes don't go so well, especially with us here in North America. The Moors who identify as black. You know what I'm saying? There's most opportunity for us to show love to each other because we're the number one people on the planet that show hate toward each other. You know what I'm saying? We have actually exercised, whereas some of the modern cultures, some of the European cultures here in North America, personally, I have no issue with most of the European approaches. Is for them. It's not necessarily for us. That works for them. All right, but we will use their approaches against each other. The melanated people in North America against each other, especially when it comes to beauty standards. You see what I'm saying? Beauty standards. We'll talk about each other's lips, nose, whatever the fact. I mean, sometimes it's just for good fun, but a lot of times it's hateful. And it usually is because we hadn't dealt with the ugliness within ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Not that we're ugly on the outside, but it's the ugliness on the inside. You know what I'm saying? That we actually feel for ourselves. Due to the programming, and the one type beauty standard, you know what I'm saying? There's only one type of being that's beautiful and that's it. And so now the Moors of North America identify as black people, we all think we ugly because of that. That formulated in the mid 1900s, somewhere around, all the way up to today. We think we ugly. We got big lips, big nose, kinky hair, whatever reason. Short, tall, thick. We think we ugly. But when it comes to other phenotypes, we don't say nothing about them. Now, I'm not promoting us to talk about, do bad, but we won't say not one word negative about anybody else. Mexican, Asian, if we do, we're just being extra hateful. But usually we don't. We target ourselves. And there's a reason for this. There's a reason why we target it. We have targeted ourselves. So now that we know what it is, we know that it's, self-hate. We already know. We mastered hate. All right, I just wanted to talk about that part. We mastered hate. So what we do is, you're doing your shadow work. You accept the good, the bad, the ugly. And there's nothing ugly about us, not really. And that was perpetuated because we didn't deal with that in the ancient times. We didn't deal with, oh, you ugly, I'm not. It was mostly, what you do. It was mostly cultural and religious. You know what I'm saying? My ways versus your ways. What really your phenotype is ugly because we had a cosmic intelligence about us. You know what I'm saying? We dealt with cosmic intelligence. Cosmic intelligence will tell you there is no ugliness. There ain't no such thing as that. It's just energy based on what you can tolerate, simply put. And so today is a huge opportunity for us, melanated Moors of North America, to learn to love instead of hate. Starting with loving ourselves. All right? Love for ourselves, love for our ancestors, which will help us start to love each other. And when we see another brother and sister, we can think positive thoughts versus thinking something negative. Now, I know it's chaotic out there. You got to be careful. But this is with any nationality. This is with anybody. Personally, I've seen all types of devils in all types of nationalities. So there's no such thing as a black, quote unquote, so-called black devil and a quote unquote so-called white devil. Ain't no such thing. People have their ways and their characters. And there's energies to things. Higher self, lower self. This is universal law. You know what I'm saying? When you start talking about devils and things like that, you're getting outside of universal law. You know what I'm saying? You're getting away from universal law. And you're playing fairy tale games is what you're doing. And then you start tapping into ego. This you look like this, you're a devil, and you look like this, you're an angel. No, ma'am, no, sir. I know better than that. Oh, I know better than that. Oh no, it don't work like that here on this planet, especially in North America. What you want to call a devil it could be in anybody, phenotype, dark skin, light skin, and when you want to play color games, pale skin, it don't matter. You know what I'm saying? The lower energies could be anywhere at any time. You see? So, of course, part of the love protocol is to get rid of the fairy tales. Let's get rid of the fairy tales and let's wake up, let's stand up as a people. And as rulership of this planet, as we have always been since our perpetuation on this planet. In these body types we in now. Here. Alright? So moving right along. I want to talk about, I think this brings me to another concept on love, where this opportunity is, and I call this the man in the mirror concept. Alright? The man in the mirror concept. Excuse me. Man in the mirror concept. So here's another opportunity here for us to love ourselves better. And I can speak to, I dealt with this personally. Whereas I was looking at and dealing with how I looked at my own people. When I spoke on earlier, when I spoke about us looking at our people and not always thinking negative. You got to be careful with anybody, but I'm just talking about on social media, anywhere. It's going to be a process in learning to love instead of hate. You know what I'm saying? On our own people. And so with me, when I was younger, years back, when I would see other brothers, you know what I'm saying, with the same type of car I had, or we at the club or something. Back during the time I was, hitting up the clubs, hitting up a lot of social events, I would see brothers with the same type of clothing I had on, and I didn't like that. You know what I'm saying? I ain't like it, and I'd be looking at them kind of crazy, and they probably looking at me kind of crazy. And saying usually that's how a fight was started. And fortunately, the high essence, the high mothers kept me safe. You know what I'm saying? And then, of course, some of my elders kept me in their prayers and good thoughts where I didn't get into a lot of trouble, if any. You know what I'm saying? But I would not like the fact that this brother had the same kind of clothes I had, or the same kind of car, or whatever, whatever. And it was only with my own kind. Whereas if I seen a Mexican, an Asian, or an Abian type European with some of the same kind of clothes I had on, I'm like, oh, this was up. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, this is me. This how I was. All right. And so this helped me to recognize some of those same energies if I saw them being projected anywhere else. You see what I'm saying? Amongst our people, amongst our own, you know. And so, but I wanted to speak on that. And so the man in the mirror concept, usually, this is when you want to look at yourself versus focusing on other people. And I've been focusing on myself and not him. I wouldn't even care, you know. And so usually when we're projecting negative energy onto somebody else, that means we have to look into ourselves. There's something going on with us internally when we're projecting that negative energy out towards someone else. You know what I'm saying? And so and this is how we advance ourselves as a people. You know what I'm saying? In comparison to where we're, sneaking and gossiping about people. You know what I'm saying? Your relatives, co-workers, things like that you might have an issue with them. If there's not an opportunity, or you're not able to create a situation to where you can peacefully speak to these people about whatever's bothering you, then what else is it for you to do? You know what I'm saying? You deal with yourself and how you can get away from that and not even have to deal with it, not even have to talk about it. You can project a bunch of negative energy, but what is that doing? And I'm asking this full on, everyone to deal with that part. When you gossip about somebody that you have the issue with, but you ain't talking directly to them, what does it do for you? Does it fix the problem? Does it fix you? Does it boost your ego? Does it substantiate the fact, all right, I was right, they was wrong? Maybe it does. I don't know. I'm asking a question about this. What does it do for you? Versus talking to them directly in their face, like grown men and women do. And can be respectful, and it don't end in a fight. Let's talk, dear brother and dear sister, about this, something that's bothering me, and I'd like to speak with you directly about it, versus talking about you behind your back to somebody else. You see what I'm saying? I ain't calling no names with that. You know what I'm saying? There's a name for that, but I'm not dealing with it. I'm dealing with the positive aspect of it. And this is what I call the man in the mirror concept. Whereas you deal with yourself, and then you go directly to that person. You see what I'm saying? If it's bothering you, if it's worth it, it may not be worth it. If it ain't worth it, don't do it. If it's risky, don't do it. But then don't turn around and go do a bunch of gossiping. Why you want to do that? I mean, you can. It'll suit your ego, but what has that done for us? We see what ego has done for all of us. And this time, you look around North America. Look at where we at as a people. Look at where everybody else is at in comparison to us. We can talk big. Everybody can run their mouth big, talk big, but look at where we are. Respectfully, look at where we are. We hate each other. With action. With action. That's what I'm saying. Mostly with action, but it's internal though. It starts internal. So we want to correct that, and this is how we start to tap into that love energy, that and moving forward toward more of a love, unconditional love energy. Whereas, look, peace and love to you, and and that's not based on anything. It's just because hey, we are people. You know what I'm saying? And I ain't got nothing but love for you. And that's the highest energy, man. And that's advancing ourselves by doing things different. Versus the hate protocol that we learn through most of the programmed agendas here in North America. All right. So, all right. The next concept. All right, so moving on from this last concept, going into, let me see here, it's the man in the mirror concept here. Now, so this one here, equate ourselves as a higher type civilization, socially, technologically, through unconditional love energy. All right, so that's also it's another aspect of the man in the mirror concept, looking back on yourself, that shadow work, loving yourself. That's the foundation of this particular concept, equating ourselves as a higher type civilization, or moving up from a zero type civilization to a higher type civilization, type 1, and then et cetera, et cetera. All right, so speaking of the civilization types, this comes from, well, of course, it's to categorize each planet that has beings on it, or Homo sapiens, or humans, or whatever civilization, any type of beings. This civilization is calculated by its type, meaning advancement, spiritually, technologically, socially, etc., etc. So, this thing called the Kardashev scale. This guy's a Russian astrophysicist. Excuse me. He came up with the concept of civilization types from 0 to 7. And so currently, in the mainstream, we are a 0 type civilization. However, as it appears the world over, now that's in the mainstream, and the private sectors, the elites are, they move in a pretty much at a 1 level, right at a 1 level as far as technology goes. However, from a spiritual capacity, we all in 0 type, with the perpetuation of hate on this planet and toward each other, the programming, and even at the top levels, it's it's real, it's not so good at the top levels, it's a dog eat dog type of world from what it seems to be. This is what, I'm not at the top level, I don't know, I'm just saying what things seems, because when it comes to things unraveling and coming apart, it starts at the top. And you see where we are, when you look around these institutions, these religious institutions, and everybody stood on all these decades, all these hundreds of years, getting to fall. So, at any rate, right now, we're at a type 0 civilization. And this is socially, spiritually, and technologically in the mainstream. All right. And so, how do we begin to change this? I like to talk solutions, versus talking about, our faults and things like that we look to work through. So, one way we start to, just like we talked about earlier, is begin to love ourselves. Love for ourselves, love for our kind. All right. And of course, that starts again with shadow work, loving yourself. Excuse me, loving yourself, and having positive thoughts about yourself, regardless of any type of negative projections. Any type of negative projections that are tossed your way, that, any mistakes that you've made in the past, you look to move past those things and work on the positives about yourself. Spiritually, do meditation. Of course, begin to listen to more positive music. Place yourselves around more positive individuals versus people that are keeping up and perpetuating negativity, gossiping, just it's always something negative, man is mind, pretty much. This is what we manifest here in the flesh. We come from mind, and man is mind at the highest level. And so what you put yourself around, what you read, what you listen to, in essence, it begins to be your makeup. In essence, So this is one way we begin to thrive and love unconditionally. We have to start with ourselves, pretty much. And this is one thing that has lacked in the age of Pisces is us dealing with ourselves first. We have learned through religious institutions, through entertainment, all genres of music, particular ways to hate each other, to show hate toward each other, to show big eyes, little U's, through, aesthetics or beauty, beautiful ways to hate on each other, beautiful ways that I'm better than you and you're ugly, and ugliness and all this stuff. We've learned all of this. We've learned spectacular ways to do harm to each other. And we've mastered hate. You know what I'm saying? We've learned to master hate versus mastering love. Little simple things. Not just simple acts of love. I'm gonna show a little love to you, just so I can throw some darts at you. So once you get to the finish line, you know what I'm saying? I'm just setting you up. That's masking. And so we want to move away from those type of hateful perpetuations and hateful acts of consciousness into more of a light consciousness, light acts of love, unconditional love capacity. And this is what we want to move toward. Now, having unconditional love is not a drop in the bucket. This is something. This is a process. You see what I'm saying? Just like with dating. When you meet somebody, you know what I'm saying? You're supposed to take your time. It's a process. Even in marriage is a process. This life is a process. Everything is a process. And so shadow work, unconditional love, moving to higher states of consciousness, you know what I'm saying? Working our way as a whole to our higher type civilization, from the 0 to 1 type civilization. This is something that's in our Akashic records, in the cosmic records, that we are to do. We're powerful beings. I would also like to institute that there are reasons why the Asiatics of North America, all of the government agencies, with all of these executive orders, i.e. Rex 84, King Alfred plan, you look into that. And this is essentially for the melanated Moors of North America who identify as black. And this is an executive order pretty much against us. It talks about how we're natives to the land, we're tied to the land by heritage, and we would be a formidable enemy. We are attacked because of how powerful we are. And so we don't want to be, we want to, with our power, we want to work toward the love energy, which is even more powerful than the power that the agencies, the corporate agencies, are afraid of. The love energy, the unconditional love energy, is the highest. That's the highest love energy that you can reach. This is what my energy meditations are telling me, and this is what my studies tell me. Master teachers have said the same thing, and so few reach this type of energy, this unconditional love. And it's usually mothers for their children demonstrate this type of love energy, the unconditional love energy. Despite your incorrections or your flaws, you're loved and you are appreciated for what you are and what the Creator made you to be, you see. And if you do wrong, you get your justice. Justice is justice. However, you're loved throughout the justice. You see what I'm saying? This is a powerful energy here. And so this is one energy that is lacking in North America, especially for the Moors of North America who identify as black. And there's a lot of opportunity for us in this particular energy to thrive in. I'm really excited about it. How we, all the opportunities we got to come together, especially our men and women, on the dating scene, to, come together start to love each other again, start to respect each other again, and look to each other for help and balance. You see what I'm saying? And to perpetuate, you see, within our culture, within all of our cultures, and with the nationality. You know, we have nationality. We have a vast estate here in North America. You know, waiting on us to claim, and all the opportunities of love. All right. So, moving to the last concept, I think that might be it, good people. All right. Also, I wanted to add in, of course, with the dating thing, with us perpetuating on this planet, continuing to perpetuate on this planet, and within dating and courting, and men respecting our women, and women respecting, and trusting our men, to protect them, and honoring our men. With that, we want to look for our own way to harmonize. Within the gender wars, this is what I noticed, that there is supposed to be one way to do things and only one way to do things with dating for every couple. And it's just not realistic. All right. You have your way to do things. Everybody is not supposed to go to the movies for the whole of their relationship, or just, everybody's not going to go to expensive restaurants to suit their love for each other. It's kind of like your own vine and fig tree type of deal. You worship under your own vine and fig tree. This is what Noble Drew Ali said. We're, with us being, Aboriginal and sovereigns of our own right, in our own self, and learning and studying ourselves. You know what I'm saying? We do what we do under our own capacity and responsibility. You see, and personally, I may like to take my spouse or spouses out to the lake or to the river and have, a bite to eat, or a drink of tea, a sip of tea, or just a walk in nature and do things. And that may be something for us, or go to an opera. Or other couples may want to go to the comedy show. That works for them. Some couples may not do none of that. They may just go to their Buddhist temple, or their church, or their mosque. And that's good enough for them, and that's entertainment. It's all encompassed in one. That's cool. All right? That's learning to love yourself. You love yourself more than what you're not dealing with everybody else outside projections. Meaning that, because they said it here and commercially, all over, overall in general, they said, these people here said that people like me are supposed to do this if we love each other. We're supposed to do only that if we love each other. Well, that's not the case. You worship under your own vine and fig tree, and you create your own ideas of what, your love for your spouse is supposed to be, and how your spouse feels about that. And that, in turn creates balance, which is the creative capacity, which is feminine energy, which is a source energy. You see what I'm saying? We're aligning ourselves back to source energy, or source creator. And the religions on planet Earth call it, you depending on your religion, call it God, Allah, Buddha, Ra, R-A, whatever, call it what you call it. It's source, most high, So, in the highest energy with that is the unconditional love, the acceptance for the whole and not the few, based on our own, our own particular, the way we want to deal with it. You know what I'm saying? On our own terms, not based on our own terms, but based off of what it is. It is what it is. Everything is everything. All right. All right. So I'm gonna wind this podcast up. This is that More Stuff podcast. The name of this podcast was "Let There Be Love." So it is so. All right. I'm gonna sign off. Honor to the ancestors, patriarch, honor to our mama. Peace, love. Everyone be well, and do your meditations.